Hey, this is Miss. I'll leave that in. I meant to say this is Matt once again, but for some reason I went. What the hell that is? I don't even drink or do drugs, but somehow I must be thinking. My brain must be doing without my permission. So, or Matt, as usually I call myself. This is a paid request for Mr. Majestic. For those interested in requesting pretty much any type of videos or list or topic or randomness or out of the blueness, commentary, whatever, feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal or join my Patreon. Both links down below in the info box. God, I'm all tongue twisted tied to what the fuck. Maybe good old fashioned water will change it. He wanted me to take a look at John Carpenter's The Thing and talk specifically on the characters, which I thought was an interesting topic. Where he didn't really say ranking them, but kind of my initial thoughts on each of these characters, because John Carpenter's The Thing is a great cast, and the way Carpenter wrote the film, the way the actors approached their roles, with such a big cast, ensemble cast, there's a lot of nice little touches that you look into it with these characters. I mean, Kurt Russell, of course, R.J. MacReady, the best character, from him being a loner who kind of, you tell he keeps maybe to himself. He likes to play computer chess, fuck it up, call it a cheating bitch, drop its alcohol and J&D, J&B whiskey. Is it J&B or J&D? Shows how much I drink. Is whiskey into it? Cheating bitch. He's definitely, I wouldn't say aloof, but he's a character that, I mean, wears a big sombrero, even though they're in the Arctic. And he's a helicopter pilot. But seems like a guy that, for the most part, people are open to trusting. Except maybe Chief David. As Charles, but most people are okay if he's the leader. Seems like the guy you want to depend on, which makes sense because it's Kurt fucking Russell. And he's definitely the guy that stands up to take leadership, and for the most part, people are willing to listen. Right, sometimes they're tied up, but he's having to understand what this creature is. Like doing the blood test scene and giving a little speech about, every piece of it's the thing, and maybe it'll fight if it has to. Actually, that's before that, but they'll even run away from a hot needle. And even before that, when he's burning the bodies, he's like, I know you're all not the thing. Otherwise, you're tap B right now, so some of you are human. If it takes us over, it's won. And it has no more enemies left. Nothing left to kill it. And, Carpenter knew how to direct Kurt Russell. And Kurt Russell really is more of the John Carpenter filmography. Like State Plisty is more the badass. Jab Burr is more the fun, lovable goof. And then R.J. MacReady is more the straight and narrow, serious guy. But they fit in those situations. They fit in those environments that Carpenter puts Kurt Russell in. And like I say, he does a great job as R.J. MacReady. They're not Swedes, but they're Norwegians. So you love Kurt Russell, big fan of the actor. Big Trouble in Little China, Steve from New York, Tango and Cash. Even films like Unlawful Entry, Backdraft, the list goes on. Great actor. Breakdown. Keith David as Childs. Love Keith David as an actor. Would work with John Carpenter again in They Live with Roddy Piper. And, Childs is a guy who's a bit of a against authority. He is also more of an independent guy. He likes to challenge authority. You tell he doesn't really like being told what to do, and he's a guy who's not a pushover. He's not a pushover. He's got bravery in him. Like when he's trying to get to Wilford Brimley, listen, Blair, I know you don't want to hurt anybody. He almost gets shot. Or like when he's getting ready for the test, he's like, okay, let's do it. Then afterward, cut me loose, goddammit. If there's anyone character-wise who's an equal to MacReady, it would be Childs. He's a tough guy. And at the end, you're not sure who's human, who's not. Are they both human? Are they both... Like, you don't quite know. That's kind of the nice question mark mystery. Carpenter knows how to do that fairly well. And it's interesting because there's the moment when he tries to talk to Wilford Brimley. You notice that Pete Davis hiding his hand. That's because he was in an accident and he fucked up his arm and it was in a cast. I think it was like a black glove on it, so you see that he's like hiding his hand, like when he crouches behind the other characters in the hallway and then tries to go in to talk to Wilford. You see one of his arms he's trying to hide. I guess based on which comic book or which storyline you go towards on whether Childs was human or not. I mean, if you base it on... I think you base it on the video game, you do find both bodies. I think you do find Child's body. Then R.J. MacReady somehow pops up at the end. And then in the comic book, I don't remember if... I know like Childs is carrying R.J. MacReady and that's you get the submarine. There's a comic book sequel to this called The Thing from Another World. I think, was it Climate of Fear or was it another one? I forget might be another tagline. But, not tagline, but it might be I forget what the exact title of it is. I forget if he if he was a thing or not. I think eventually he was. I can't remember now. But that might have happened later. Anyway, it's been a while since I read that comic. But I know there was talks of doing... John Carpenter at one point was going to do a sequel sometime in the 2000s. It was going to be maybe a miniseries. And Kurt Russell T. Day would come back and to explain their age difference, even though this amount of time passed. Their body would be a bit wrecked from frostbite, so their face would be damaged a bit from that. Thus you put and hide which is, I mean, actually a smart idea. At the time with Carpenter, I would have been curious to see it. Because not nowadays, then they did that shitty prequel. But yeah, Child's, very tough but, likable character. He's a guy that, like when he stands up to MacReady who has the gun, I mean it. So you do. If there's a guy that will stand up to MacReady, it's Childs. And he wants to be the leader. You tell he wants to be the leader. Just like when Windows is freaking out and who was it? Gary, Donald Moffat's character, he's unsure about it. He gives his gun up. Keith Davis ready to take it, and then Richard Masters says, "No, you don't." And then Archer MacReady's the guy who's able to dissolve the situation. That's what I mean. Like he's the guy that ultimately people are like, okay, we'll more trusting towards him. Wilford Brimley, I'm a fan. May rest in peace. I loved him in Hard Target. Loved him a lot of stuff as Blair. He's a guy who is more of the I don't know if you would call it more the scientist in the group. He's a guy who kind of realizes the seriousness of the situation. He's kind of like Richard Crenna in this film, where he, through a computer, he finds out what's going on, the danger of it, and realizes, as he's freaking out, don't you understand that they want to be us? I do love that scene. I love his acting. No dog could make it over, that line, that many miles. He knows if it gets to a population, how quickly it's going to overcome, and that his thinking, we need to be stopped right now. So that's why he starts breaking shit, and he's like, I think he was human when he was wrecking shit, and he was with the axe. I think he was human there, and then when they put him in the tool shed, I think he became the Thing somehow. And I want to say it's when there's this one moment where they look in, and I swear there's like a noose. There's like a fucking noose. So I don't know if that was like a part of him that knew and tried to kill himself, but then the Thing part of him overtook this. It's one of those interesting things about the Thing, like, does it mimic you so perfectly that even when like, oh my god, I'm the Thing, I need to kill myself, but then, wait a minute, don't mimic yourself that perfectly, you're still the Thing. That's for me, it's that interesting dynamic of just how perfectly does it mimic you. Watch clock, do you hear me? I think he was stalling time to build that fucking little ship in the bottom of it. I think he was the Thing where he's like, I just want to come back inside. He's the last Thing that we see, so he's kind of the last villain technically that we see, which is ironic, because he's a guy that was studying the after effects of the creature, doing a dissection of it. Like, this Thing tried to mimic these dogs. He's like the guy who starts having the paranoia, doesn't trust Clark, Richard Masters' character. As ironic, the first guy that starts to distrust people is the last guy. As far as we know, that is the Thing. And, Wilford Brimley, these characters play their roles fairly well, even if it's limited to what they could do. Like Richard Master as Clark, who loves the dogs, almost maybe even likes the dogs more than humans. Maybe he's another loner, companionship with the dogs. He cares for the dogs, to relate to them more. This is a point where they're shooting at the dogs, and Richard's like, stop, what the fuck you doing? And he's, because of that separation from humanity, of caring about the dogs more, that creates more distrust, and he's the first, he's the innocent to get killed. Because again, this is a guy who trusts animals more than dogs. He tries to kill MacReady, and MacReady shoots him. And then you find out he was human. It's like, ooh, shit. Kurt Russell fucked up, but he did warn people, and it's like, doggy dog world, and again, did you see the one guy in the movie that, well, not one, not including the Norwegians at the beginning, the other guy killed not by the Thing. And it's like, you wonder if he maybe had a bit more trust in humans. Maybe he'd still be alive. I don't know. But again, Richard Masters, a good actor. He was the dad in License to Drive. He was in the 1990s Steven King's It. He's in other stuff as well. Tom Waits as Windows. Uh, Thomas Waits was in The Warriors and other stuff. Windows is a very like hyper guy who's always trying to get the radio. Oh, people always pick on him, but it's like he can't get the radio work, and there's not much he do. I haven't got shit here in weeks. He's a guy that you feel bad for because again, he's trying to do his best. He's scared. He's the one who runs off. You don't trust Gary. He could be one of those things. Probably that fear gets the best of him because when Palmer goes the thing like he's trying to get it. Kurt Russell's trying to get it, but it's stopped up. It's like windows fry him, but the guy's so scared, and we've seen him before that he's hyper when he's trying to get the radio to work, and again he's scared trying to get the gun, and Donald Moffat almost shoots him in the head. He freezes and he pays the price, sadly. Gets picked up by his fucking head and moved around and stuff. So he's a guy that you feel a bit sorry for. T.K. Carter as Knowles. If there's any little bits of comedy in the film or humor, little bits are from him. You know, the guy, he's the cook, roller skates, loves Stevie Wonder. Seems like he'd be one of the potential last... Because the black guy doesn't die first or second or third. When you get to finale, Childs is missing. And you're wondering, did he get taken or did he go off to try to find Wilford Brimley get lost? And it's T.K. Carr, Donald Moffat, and Kurt Russell. And I like the actor. He was in a film called Southern Comfort, also in the 80s. And sadly, he didn't get to do a whole lot, even though he's a pretty decent actor. And the interesting thing with him is he's one of the only ones you never see die. Like, you don't see Fuchs, Joe Paulus die, but you see a little bit of his remains, like his glasses. But Knowles, you see nothing of him. I know there's a deleted... I don't think they ever shot the scene, but there's like storyboard that I think like he hid somewhere and then an arm came out and grabbed him. Like, again, I think that was done more for suspense of, you know, Caruso's talking. What? And then he looks down that dark hallway, realizes, oh shit, something's up. He's gone too. Granted, I know there's like storyboards, but I do wonder if they would have changed it if they decided to film his death scene, what specifically that would have been. Would have been Wilford Brimley killing him? Would it be him as the Thing killing Knowles? I don't know. And like I said, a lot of these guys, it's not like in-depth stuff, but it's just they work well with the group. They're talking back and forth. Like David Clinton as Palmer. The guy who seems a bit burned out, and he's like loves to smoke weed, and cheers the gods, man. They're falling out of the skies. I ain't going with Windows. I go with Childs. Fuck you, Palmer. And then that creates more of the paranoia, the animosity, who do you trust, and even little bits of humor, like from David Clinton or T.K. Carter or stuff, or Donald Moffat. I would like to not spend the rest of the winter tied to this fucking couch. But you know, the idea that they're early on they're watching videotape reruns of game shows because there's nothing else to do in the Arctic. I think he's the first that the dog takes over. To see the scene, and even the dog's a good actor, walk around. I think when the dog stares and you see a shadow, I think that's David Palmer's character. I mean Clinton's character of Palmer. I do think that's him. Just the shadow, the body language, just the hair, it just screams Palmer to me. So I think he was the thing throughout it, and he was just, usually he's the guy kind of hanging back. I mean, he's like, I don't want to go with Childs because he's a tough guy. I'm going to go with Windows because he's the more steeredy guy. So I think that's why the Thing wanted to do that. Bennings, he's really the first of the group that we see become the Thing. Peter Maloney. Not a whole lot to talk about him. I mean, he does fine for the SU. It's just he's not in the film as much as the others, so there's really not much to talk about with Bennings. Other than his death scene when he does that roar and then they burn him up. Joel Paulus is Fuchs. Should not be working by himself. And then when the lights go out and he sees a shadow with a candle or not, don't go after that. Go the opposite way. He was too inquisitive. He got fucking killed. Now whether he tried to burn it or he burned himself before it could get to him. Again, that's an interesting idea. Would you have enough time to fucking burn yourself and set yourself on fire? Would that happen? And where was the body too? Because I only saw like the glasses and stuff, but I didn't really see a body of Fuchs. Maybe it's been a while since I've seen it, and I can't remember like an actual body. Maybe there was. I don't know. I'm trying to remember now. I do remember the glasses, but there's some stuff there. Just as, is it Fuchs? I would think if they saw a body, they would know it's Fuchs. I can't remember. Maybe it was. Because they do say, maybe he tried to burn it. Maybe it burned it. I mean, again. And then he works with Richard Dysart as Copper. Dysart's more the doctor of the group. And then who got to the blood? Was it him? Was it someone else? Richard Dysart, I've seen in films. He was in Warning Sign from 1985, among others. Another good actor. And he never turns to a thing. He gets his arms bitten off and killed. And like the best scene in the movie with the arms. And that goes to Norris, Charlie Hallahan, may you rest in peace, as the best part of the thing where his stomach opens up, bites arms off his head, goes to the ground, and then spider legs. And Norris, he's a guy who's there. He's like, he's also a guy that people are okay with trusting. And he's like, I don't know, I'm not really up to it, guys. And whether that's him somehow deep down realizing, no, you don't want me as the leader. But it is like, how perfectly does it mimic? Does it mimic even the thought process of the individual? It's one of those things of just how perfectly does it mimic before its instincts take over. So even though a lot of these guys don't have a lot of in-depth to the character, there's these nice little moments, and they just work well as an ensemble, as a group. And I don't think there's a bad actor in the entire ensemble. And just the way John Carpenter had to frame certain things, where you have all these characters, try to get them into the same frame or similar to the frame, and they look-wise, they're recognizable. Like, Richard Dysart looks very different from Richard Masur. And so on and so forth. Like, not just good actors, but distinct looks of characters. So you could tell them apart. Unlike the Thing prequel, where there's like 40 Norwegians, I couldn't tell them apart. You know, there's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Was it 12? 2, 4, 6. Yeah, about 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, 12 people. Which is enough. That's a lot of people as is. You know, a dozen people. With a dozen people, it's hard to make a dozen in-depth characters. But again, it's the way they react to situations, the way they interact with people. Just being good actors on their front. Being able to tell them apart helps too. Instead of blending into the background or blending with these 3, 4 other people. That's one of the many reasons that makes The Thing such a classic. As well as the music, the effects, the suspense, the direction. And yeah, it's a good cast and good cast of characters. That yes, you could do that without having three-dimensional dissertations of each character. It's just the way you have them interact, their behavior. It seems fairly consistent with who they're supposed to be. That's just my opinion on it. So with that said, it's a classic. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.